This is a committee of public safety on a hearing on the following bills. Bills number 240280, 240330, and 240472. Mr. Glass, would you please read the title of the bills?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Bill number 240280, amending Chapter 10, 2200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Hate Crimes to expand the scope of qualifying crimes, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 240330, amending Chapter 21-1200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Citizens Police Oversight Commission to modify the procedure for which members of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission may be removed, providing a procedure to suspend members, and clarifying terms in that chapter, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 240472, amending Chapter 10-2000 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Unlawful Manufacture of Firearms to add restrictions relating to rate of fire acceleration devices, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. We have a quorum represented by Member Lozada, Member Gutierrez, and Member Harity. Thank you all for your attendance. I'm going to start with the hate crime.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Bill. And I'm going to say this. I wore a pen today. It is the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission pen, of which I am a member. And our theme at the Commonwealth is no hate in our state. And the reason we chose that is it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, or any other described religion, you should not be victimized by crime based on that. And this bill will attempt to address that, whether it's a pig's head at a mosque or hateful SWAT stickers and a synagogue, or whether it's people entering a church that believe they're safe based on the location of their worship, but we need to tighten that up a bit. And with that, we will take a look at increasing what the definitions of hate crime are in the city of Philadelphia. With that, are there any other members to talk about this particular bill? No? Seeing none, Mr. Glass.
Mr. Chairman, our first panel will be Deputy Commissioner Francis Healy of the Philadelphia Police Department, Jason Holtzman of the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia, and Timothy Welbeck, Esquire, from CARE Philadelphia.
Welcome, welcome. Please come to the testimony table, have a seat, and we will begin in the order in which you were called.
Deputy Commissioner Francis Healy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is your mic working?
Yes, Councilman.
Okay. State, you've been here before. State your name for the record, and please begin your testimony.
My name is Deputy Commissioner Francis Healy on behalf of the Philadelphia Police Commissioner. Good morning, Councilmember Jones and Vice Member Lozada. I'm sorry, she's not here. My name is Francis Healy, as I mentioned, Deputy Commissioner, Philadelphia Police Department, Chief of Staff and Legal Affairs. First, on behalf of Commissioner Bessel, thank you and the Philadelphia for allowing the Police Department to voice its opinion regarding Bill number 240280, which amends the Philadelphia Hate Crimes Ordinance. The amendments being made to Chapter 10-2200 relating to hate crimes may appear minor on their face, but they are rather substantial and regrettably necessary. And it's for this reason that the Philadelphia Police Department supports these amendments to the code. We can all agree that there can be no sanctuary for hate in our society nor in our laws. It's incumbent upon our elected officials to act swiftly, in unison, and decisively when hate finds any loopholes in our laws. This body, through the leadership of Chairperson Jones, has clearly acted swiftly with his colleagues to close such a loophole, and is why these minor edits being debated here are so substantial. In a nutshell, the current ordinance defines hate as being directed towards individuals or groups of individuals, but does not include businesses in that definition. Nonetheless, hate against a business because of the actual perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, age, ethnicity, color, race, religion, or national origin of the business owners is no less offensive. We know that the owners of small businesses put their blood, sweat, and tears, and often their entire life savings into these businesses so that they can make a better life for their families. This is the American dream, and these businesses, just as individuals, have a right to be free from hate to operate freely. No business should be targeted or vandalized simply because the actual or perceived sexual orientation, as I mentioned, gender identity, disability, age, and religion of the national origin of the business owners. So as I mentioned, these code amendments offered here in the bill, although technically minor, are in fact quite substantial. With the addition of just a few words, this body has increased the umbrella against hate exponentially for each and every business in the city, and for this reason, the PPD supports this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We're going to hold questions until this panel gets to testify. I believe the Jewish Federation was next.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Jason Holtzman of the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia.
Good morning, Chairman Jones and other esteemed members of council. My name is Jason Holtzman, and I serve as the Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council, JCRC, of the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. Today I stand before you to express our gratitude for the opportunity to address the council and advocate for the passage of City Council Bill number 240280. This crucial bill aims to broaden the definition of hate crimes to encompass offenses committed against businesses. As a representative of the Jewish Federation, I wholeheartedly endorse this initiative, recognizing its significance in safeguarding our community and promoting a more inclusive and secure environment. Over the past 7 months, our city has witnessed a disconcerting surge in attacks specifically targeting Jewish institutions and Jewish-owned businesses. These incidents extend beyond mere acts of vandalism. They constitute deliberate acts of intimidation aimed at our community. One incident underscores the urgency of addressing this issue. Macomb Community, an after-school program located at 20th and Sansom, fell victim to such an attack. Vandals defaced the front window with the message, "Free Palestine." However, this act transcended mere graffiti. It was a targeted act designed to instill fear and convey a hostile message to the Jewish community. In response, the resilient owners of Macomb Community covered the hateful words with a powerful counter message, quote, "We all deserve peace and safety. Happy Hanukkah. Let your light shine." Their courage exemplified our community's unwavering commitment to peace and unity, even in the face of hatred. Businesses are more than just economic entities. They are integral threads in our social fabric. When they suffer, the entire community feels the impact. By expanding the definition of hate crimes to include offenses against businesses, we send a resounding message: Philadelphia stands united against hate. This legislative step reinforces our collective commitment to protecting all residents regardless of their affiliations. In passing Bill number 240280, Philadelphia City Council will take a decisive stand against hate-driven violence. We implore you to consider the broader implications, safe and respectful environments for all businesses, irrespective of their backgrounds. Let us demonstrate that Philadelphia remains a city where everyone can thrive in peace and safety. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll end with Keir.
Good morning, Council. Good morning. My name is Timothy Welbeck, and I am appearing in my capacity as a civil rights attorney for the Council on American Islamic Relations Philadelphia chapter, and I come to you today in support of Bill 240280, which will expand the definition of hate crimes in our city. As my colleagues have already mentioned so far, this bill will bring forth decisive and necessary action to ensure that Philadelphians are safe and able to live and exist freely within our city. As you all well know, the express intent of state law currently adds a sentencing enhancement as a deterrent for the commission of crimes, serious crimes that is, motivated by hatred towards the members of a protected class. In English, what that means is that our state has determined that there needs to be an enhancement for sentencing when someone commits a crime against someone based on who they are, their race, their religion, their ethnicity, their national origin, their sexual orientation, and the like. And the state rightfully also has included sacred institutions as well, knowing that those at times can become targets of those who exhibit hatred. We've seen that in our own state with the attack on Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. We've seen that nationally with the attack on Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in South Carolina. We ask that you extend the definition of hate crimes to include individual businesses, in part because they are not only vital institutions within communities, but they also express and communicate vital viewpoints within the communities. And beyond that, they can become targets for the same level of harassment, intimidation, and hatred. I ask you to consider, for example, the repeat vandalism on Lombard Cafe in Society Hill. The owner, Yasmin Amira Tibi Benoui, is a respected community member who has created a business that is a beacon in her community. And when she began to voice her support for some of what is happening to Palestinians in Gaza, her business was not only repeatedly attacked, but she feels as though her livelihood was attacked as it relates to that. As, again, my colleagues have mentioned, attacks in this way bring forth a sense of intimidation and fear, and they also convey a sense of hostility towards people just because of who they are. We have said that we are a city where hate should not be, that there should be no hate in the city of Philadelphia, and we believe that this is a necessary step in ensuring that will happen. So with that, we come today to voice our support for this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so very much for your testimony. Commissioner Healy, is there an increase, leveling, or decrease in hate crimes in Philadelphia? And it doesn't have to be, what is your general gut?
I'm sorry, was that to me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part. I apologize.
Can pull the mic to you.
I don't have the numbers, but there has been an uptick, yes.
And so is that over the last year? Is it over the last 2 years? How often? I mean, when did you see the spike?
I can get back to you with more accurate numbers. I just don't have them there. I wasn't prepared with the numbers.
Okay. There's a saying that if you want to clean up the world, start sweeping under your own feet. And I hope that this legislation actually starts that process, that if we don't tolerate hate here, maybe that'll spread other places. I don't want to do the some of my best friends are thing, but my neighbors, I live next door to a rabbinical school, and they're some of the greatest neighbors I've ever had. And they look out for me, and I look out for them. And nobody should be victimized in your place of worship or your place of business based on your ethnic beliefs or your religion. So, colleagues, do you have any other questions for this panel? Member?
Just one. How often, when we bring these people in, how often do we find that they actually are a hate crime, and it's just not just random people who didn't target any specific business but just wanted to act inappropriately? How often does that happen?
I'll allow my colleagues here to answer, but a lot of times it depends upon the investigation. Sometimes these individuals may have issues, and not necessarily whether or not it's hate-related or not, but nonetheless, it's for the people who receive it. I mean, it's still intimidating, threatening, and harassing. So oftentimes the intent of the perpetrator is not necessarily known by the victim. But for a lot of times we see places where it's individuals that are suffering from other types of disorders or issues and act out in this way. But there are a handful of folks that act out of hate, and those are the ones we actually target. Yes. Those that are acting out of other issues, we try to connect them with mental health services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Gutierrez.
If I may add to that, too, what I would say is that there are at times clear signals and symbols that signify hatred towards targeted groups. If one were to put a swastika on a Jewish-owned business, that sends a clear signal of hatred that's targeted towards a specific group. If one were to burn a cross in front of a business owned by a black person, it sends a specific signal that's steeped in history. And so while there may be underlying issues as well, we believe that there is a need to target this type of hatred that sends a historic signal, in part because of the fear, the terror, the dread that accompanies it.
And I think that's important, right? That this bill is not, we're not targeting a specific community, right? We're not saying this is a bill to support hate crimes against a Jewish business or an Italian business, a Latino business. This bill will allow for us to address hate crime in general. And I just wanted to make sure that we put that on the record, because what I don't want is for folks to say, you guys are just putting this legislation together for this specific population of people or for this community of folks. And so we want to make sure that people understand that Philadelphia welcomes and supports all businesses, right? We support and welcome all people, and hate is not tolerated here.
Well said.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Well said. Member Gutierrez.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to commend the council member for taking action on this issue. This has been such a difficult time because it feels like we don't have a lot of local control over the atrocities that we're seeing in the Middle East, but we do have control to a large degree over keeping our people safe. And that's why I think this is important. In my district, for example, I know I've worked with CARE around not the defacement of a business, but the defacement of Masjid Al Jamia in West Philadelphia. And that was heartbreaking to me because people should feel safe at home. People should feel safe in their place of worship. And no one should feel a target based on their race or their ethnicity. And similarly, I've been disheartened and disappointed by some of the targeting that I've seen of Jewish businesses in our city. And so I think this is a way of helping to keep our people safe at home. And I commend you for taking this step. And thank you to all of you for testifying.
Member Harity, you okay?
Councilman Jones, I like to also thank you for putting this in. It's no secret me and Senator Street are best friends, and we talk about the race issue quite often. We actually have a little running joke that we like to say that when the aliens come, we'll learn that there's only one race, the human race, and all the color of your skin represents is where your ancestors came from on the planet. If you came from someplace hot, you're dark. If you come from someplace cool and rainy, you're white. And other places mean you're in between. For me, I've grown up in mixed neighborhoods my whole life. One thing I know about living in Kensington is there's no real color in a poor neighborhood except green. If you come into my neighborhood with my neighbors, they treat me the same as they treat every other neighbor on the block. Not saying that we get along all the time. We have disagreements, but when it comes down to it, we stick together because we know we're all in the same group, and that is low income and poor people. For me, the fact that it's 2024 and we're still talking about race is just utterly ridiculous. I understand that things in the past that were not right were done. I get that. But I believe I'd like to see one day a place here in Philadelphia where race doesn't mean anything. Because it doesn't mean anything. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what sex you are. I don't care who you are. If you're a good person, I'm going to be good to you. And that's all it's about. For me is, if we're going to judge anybody on anything, it should be on whether you're a good person or you're not a good person. So I thank you, Councilman Jones, and respect everything you're doing in this space.
Well said, member. Okay, thank you. So I was at a mural dedication in Manio last week, and all of the young people were in the schoolyard sitting in there, and they were cheering, and they were happy, and they were ready and pointing out where they had painted their splotch of paint on the mural. And if Martin Luther King could have realized his dream, what he was looking at, it was that schoolyard. There were Jewish kids next to Muslim kids next to Christian kids next to black kids next to Hispanic kids, and I don't even think they knew the difference nor cared. And if we, as adults, had, set that example that the content of the character as opposed to the origin of the skin or the religion, I think we will do ourselves a service. Now, I'm not going to preach because we got a lot of an agenda today, but I want to thank you all for your testimony. Any other questions from the panel? No? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Glass, who's next?
Mr. Chairman, our next panel will be Anthony Arachi, Deputy Executive Director of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, Commissioner Rosario Torres-Thomas of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, and Commissioner Hassan Bennett of the Citizens Police Oversight
So
Commission.
we are now in bill number 240330?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Welcome. So I'll start out by saying that Philadelphia, in my opinion, has not experienced yet its George Floyd moment. We had some, but not to the degree that it could be. And you know, it could be worse. And I don't want it to get worse, is the point. And it's important that this commission be armed with the ability to be that nonpartisan, independent organization, to be able to look at the processes in the city of Philadelphia, both police, citizen involvement, to be able to say, this was right, this was wrong, this is how we do it better. And with that, that's the spirit of this legislation. So with that, can we begin testimony in the order in which Mr. Glass called?
Anthony Arachi.
Thanks, everybody, and good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, committee chair, co-chair, and members of council. My name is Anthony Arachi, and I am the Deputy Executive Director of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. We are here today to enthusiastically support the proposed amendment to the CPOC ordinance, and we are grateful to Councilmember Jones for his leadership in this process. Like any fledgling agency, the necessity of process changes becomes apparent as experience is gained. And while this is the first adjustment to our founding legislation, it probably won't be the last. This amendment modifies the removal mechanism for the CPOC Board of Commissioners, allowing the Commission to address serious misconduct issues should they arise. Secondly, the amendment provides an important clarification of the terms in the ordinance. These changes will help our young agency to continue to grow and fulfill the important duties we are tasked with. The ordinance's existing removal mechanism applies only to situations where a member of the Commission is being removed for cause. This means misconduct, inability or failure to perform required duties, or ethical violations. The ordinance also requires that any person being removed have due process protections, including notice and the opportunity to be heard at a hearing. All of these important provisions remain the same. Under the existing process, only City Council can remove a member of the Commission, employing a process that can be time-consuming and difficult to navigate given the magnitude, scope, and volume of City Council responsibilities. This amendment creates an interim step that allows the Board of Commissioners to address serious misconduct by voting to remove a member where necessary with the same due process protections. Furthermore, the removal would not be finalized until City Council has had the opportunity to vote to supersede that removal. The suspension mechanism simply allows time for a complete and thorough investigation into any alleged misconduct, or allows time for City Council to review the board's removal vote. Suspension allows the Commission to protect confidential information during that process. In addition, the amendment clarifies definitions, including both the board of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission and the department, meaning PPD. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So we will listen to the entire panel and then open up for questions if that's the will of the group.
Mr. Chairman, our next witness will be Commissioner Rosario Torres-Thomas.
Good
Welcome.
morning, Council.
Good morning.
Sorry. Councilmen and women, thank you so much for having me here. When I was appointed as your commissioner for the 15th District, I was proud and honored. This is a volunteer for me. I do not make a salary, but I humble myself in my position. I can confirm with you, if you review the CPOC meeting on April 27th of 2023, you will see the pushback and the resistance that we have received from staff. And this has been ongoing. I am disappointed because I witnessed a staff member's husband physically put his hand on a citizen. And when I heard her scream, I ran and put my body between them. I'm old. I'll be 65 next year. And my intention is not to glorify my resume or to be this politician, no offense. I just want to retire along with my husband and be at peace. I'm a bit nervous, but my confidential letter to the Inspector General was released to the person that was being investigated. And I had asked, how was my letter able to get to this person? Because the only person I shared my letter with was the Inspector General, Jali Hatchett, our chair, and Anthony Arachi. I was verbally attacked at town hall meetings, not by citizens, not by police officers, but by staff. Commissioner PA was to witness, and so was my husband, Michael. When I witnessed that incident at Marian Anderson Rec Center, my husband was there. I am visually impaired, but one thing I would not stand by is to witness a huge man put his hands on a tiny woman. I was not going to stand back and let that happen, so I intervened. As a survivor of domestic violence, we do not blame, shame, and guilt a survivor. We support them, and that's not what I've noticed. I was told that I put this family in turmoil because of my letter. I don't feel that I put the family in turmoil. Sadly, this gentleman putting his hands on this woman is why they're in turmoil. I have received fictitious, bogus subpoenas wanting to review my emails. If you want to find out what I witnessed and what I saw, you need to subpoena Anthony Arachi's emails and Talia Grimmage emails. They are the ones that sent me horrible emails in regards to citizens. CPOC was created to help the citizens in the city of Philadelphia, not to glorify their salaries, but to help the citizens. And believe me when I say this, Citizen One is not the only person that has reached out to me. Even last night, I was called about another incident. And to call them crazy, mental, combative, argumentative, and that they need psychiatric help, I don't know any survivor who has been through any trauma who needs psychiatric help. And for them to say that makes me think they're not for the people. I may be commissioner for the 15th, but I feel that I am commissioner for the entire city. So sometimes you'll know if I'm in Kensington, that's my own neighborhood. Even to the point when I attended the Eddie Irizarry rally, I was questioned. Why was I at the press conference? No, I was at the rally. That is my old neighborhood back in the 60s. And I was there in support of the community and the family of Eddie Irizarry. But I felt that nothing I did, if I spoke too much, if I said too much, if I asked too many questions, I was wrong. If this attacking me, am I safe? Am I safe as one of your commissioners? Because not the citizens, not the police department, but the staff have come at me. And I thought, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stand by. I'm not going to resign. And I know that the reason why this bill was brought to your attention was to remove me. But I'm standing strong. And I'm standing for the people in the city of Philadelphia, not for myself. So I want to thank you for allowing me to speak as quickly as I could. But this has been a bit frustrating and sad for me because we were created to help the citizens in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll wait until the final testifier on this panel, and then we'll go in.
Good morning, council members. I'm Hassan Bennett, as was announced. Commissioner Elder Du Bois titles me the chapter and verse commissioner. And that's basically because I support everything by some type of document or quote from prior hearings or prior interactions. So I'll start with that. The day of our appointment, we were warned with the following. Thank you to all those willing to serve, because this is going to be work. It's going to be hard work. Then Council President Clark added, sometimes people say, be careful what you wish for, right? Commissioners have felt the weight of every syllable of that quote. Yet we stand here today committed to our duties to the city of Philadelphia. And the city should expect nothing less. But what happens when a commissioner falls short of these expectations? What happens when a commissioner deviates from the quorum's vote and becomes a liability? With the proposed legislative amendment, as council has entrusted commissioners with upholding the legislation, section 21-1203, subsection 7 of this amendment is kind of a relief. April 18th, 2022, you, Councilman Jones, informed us all 500,000 people agreed we needed to have permanency. A permanency that did not depend on the whim of any administration or any council or any mayor. Given the city's strong desire for independent agency, it is imperative to add this amendment, granting commissioners legislative power to hold each other accountable. This is a crucial step in the next chapter of police oversight. Moreover, the amendment provides council with veto power to ensure just cause in any quorum decision in this manner. Thus, any commissioner's decision of this magnitude would protect the integrity of CPOC and ensure adequate service to the city of Philadelphia. Next, we've had amazing interactions with the Director of Investigations, Jamin Rogers, who is a former officer, if you didn't know. It would be a privilege to sit with anyone with his experience or character. So when it comes to the amendment that permits prior officers who have been 5 years withdrawn from the office and 5 years withdrawn from any union, we welcome that, as long as they are willing to listen and hear out all commissioners and work in a collaborative effort. We began a new chapter in oversight with hiring Attorney Twigg and Executive Director Tanya McClary. With every new chapter brings with it new language. And I support this current proposed amendment presented today as a part of this evolving narrative. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. For my members and those in the listening public, when we put this to a vote on the city charter, our intentions in the legislation was to create an independent, say it again, independent body that was above the politics. So we had Jim Kenney, we have Mayor Parker now, and those are probably, and I can say, folk that are going to do the right thing, but we don't know 3 elections from now who the mayor will be, who the police commissioner will be, and what the political atmosphere will be. But what we can assure is that they will be independent, that they will be able to exist, that they will have a budget, that they will be able to function. And that is the intention of this legislation. We tried to build a plane and fly it too. Build the plane, figure it out, and fly it too. There was friction. There's going to be friction in any newly founded organization. But what we wanted to do with this amendment is not to try any particular case, not to say this is someone we want off, but to have a mechanism to self-govern for the board so that they can say, you know what, following due process, we think you may have had a misstep. And in order to keep the integrity of the process, here's what we think. And then even in that, with this amendment, we get a second bite at the apple. We get to say, you know what, we don't agree with you. And to be able to inject that opinion at one point. I was asked by a member of council, aren't we giving them too much power? Aren't we giving them too much independence? And I would answer, no. That's the intention, to be able to take your bumps and bruises, to figure it out internally so that the process has integrity. There's going to be times, and I correct myself by the George Floyd moment, I duly understand what you meant. It has been received. Yeah. But at some point in the city, it's going to happen again. And when it does, we don't want naysayers of the process to be able to point out fractures within the process to be able to file suit. Clearly in the definition, which is important, and I recognize this when I met with you guys, that training is important. As a board member, you know, I think I have powers that I may not have. And I'm talking about the Human Relations Commission. I'm using my commission as an example. I have been curious about cases, but there has to be a firewall in between what the investigators investigate and what I deliberate on later, so that I can keep an arm's length, impartial view of what their work produced. That is important in the integrity of the work. Now, we're never going to be perfect, guarantee you that. But we can endeavor to become better each and every opportunity that we see that there's a gap, that there's a definition gap, that there's a defining issue that we can address as a body. And at the end of the day, y'all working, the board is working for free. So we thank you so much for your contribution. You go into neighborhoods, you listen better than we do. Because when they address them, it's usually about specific issues related to interaction with our police force. And that is important, that people have faith that you're listening. I remember, and I'm going to end this with this, when we had a body that only, you mentioned former President Clark, that we had a body that we only gave you guys $250,000. That was designed to fail. You didn't have investigators. The waiting for a complaint to be processed was upwards, Anthony, about 2 years before they got to it. And we had to fight to get a budget. We're fighting to make sure that these amendments empower you so that, you know, when you come before us, you've made a decision internally that we can review. So with that, that's what the intention of this legislation is. And I want it to be real clear that it's not about an individual case. It's about a process by which they can self-govern. And I think that's important. Anybody want to? Okay, I'm going to go this way and then that way. Member Gutierrez.
Again, just wanted to commend the council member on this bill. I'm glad you corrected the record about us not having seen a George Floyd moment, because Because we've seen lots of them. You know, my district was literally on fire twice. Once after the uprisings following George Floyd, once after the local police involved shooting of Walter Wallace Jr., who was shot, you know, less than 1 minute of the police arriving on the scene as he was experiencing a mental health crisis. And that's why this is important, right? As much as I respected the people who were involved with the advisory commission, including Mr. Hirachi, I never believed that the same entity reporting, that the advisory board reporting to MDO and police reporting to MDO could ever, you know, result in accountability. It's just not possible. And so I think it was very important to create this body, probably one of the most important things that we could have done in this city for accountability, but also to help us with some of the issues that we're seeing around gun violence. I don't believe that we will ever be able to clear cases in a way that's meaningful if citizens don't trust the police. And for citizens to trust the police, there has to be a mechanism for accountability. And so thank you for creating this commission, along with my sister, the Honorable Samantha Williams, who worked very hard on this. I think it's important, and I agree with the amendment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Member. Well said. Member Lozada?
Good morning, or good afternoon. Let me see. Good morning.
morning.
We're still in morning. So thank you so much to each of you for your testimony. As the council member and chair mentioned, as we go along the process, when we're creating these types of commissions or just boards, body of boards, there's going to be some turbulence along the way, right? Especially if we've never done it, and so that is to be expected. But what I also want to be careful of is timing, right? What is its timing, and how did this come about? I want to be very cautious that we are not creating these types of legislation that we call oversight, right? And that we call putting processes in place as a result of a specific incident, right, which is what is being insinuated here today. Oversight is absolutely necessary, right? I agree with that. I think that as a government, we do not do our due diligence. We don't do a good job at providing oversight when we are putting things in place, and we're so quick to put them together because we think that we're responding. This commission was in response to all of these other incidents, and we put them together very quickly, and I don't think we sometimes think them through all the way. And so I want to make sure that we understand that timing is important, but sometimes timing doesn't happen until incidents occur that allow us to kind of take a step back and look at what we did and how we put it together. And we're bound to make mistakes. We're bound to miss a step. And this allows us that moment to step back, look at the process, and fill in and correct and make modifications to all those spaces, or to all of those, to that process that isn't going to be perfect at the beginning, right? I just want to make sure that I say that, because I think that I have heard from past and present commissioners who have said, CPAC, the concept of CPAC is amazing. It's great. We need it. It's absolutely important. But there are breakdowns in the process that are not exactly perfect, right? And they're never going to be, but they're not good processes, and they get us to here. They get us to a point where there's confusion, there's frustration, and this legislative body then needs to get involved. And so I think that, you know, I want people to understand that this is going to happen in everything we do, especially in government as we go based on different situations. We'll probably be here again in a year or two, just modifying the process of what the board is supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to serve, and how does the community really, what's the community's voice in your work, right? How do you report back the voices of the community? Because that's a part of this of this commission that I have not seen or heard enough of, right? I don't know what you all are, what cases you all took, what you investigated, what was the outcome, how did the community play a role? All of those are things that I think are extremely important so that people buy into the commission and understand that although it's not perfect, it is working in the best interest of the people. So thank you so much for your work.
Well said. I mean, the most important your day-to-day work is important, but it is the full faith and trust of the public that we're fighting for, that we want to maintain, and that when you make a decision, that people trust it. They said, you know what, and heretofore, you've been in sync with what the administration has said, but there may come a time when you say we don't see it that way, that we differ in how that process should have gone. And those will be the defining moments of this commission, that when we stand apart and say, here's our process, and here's why we drew that conclusion that your mettle will be tested. And we believe that these times right now, what you're going through right now, creates that process that we can believe in. So let me, yes, I'm sorry, Jim Harity.
You're all right. I want to start off by saying that I believe the commission was definitely needed. I believe that we have a handful of officers that do not need to be officers. But I also know that we have thousands of good officers who just want to go out and protect and serve their community and get home safe to their families every night. That's why when you guys had your meeting in Kensington, I was very disappointed with the language of the flyer that went out. We here in the city of Philadelphia are trying to establish trust again in our police department. We are trying to establish community policing with officers out there being trusted by the community that they serve. That's why I was very disappointed when somebody showed me the flyer, and I'm paraphrasing now, it basically said, please come to the meeting, you will be safe, there will be no police. That is absolutely, positively the wrong message to be sent out to a community that is already feeling the pressures of the opioid epidemic, the lack of policing in their neighborhood. I think you guys got a little wake up too, because it actually didn't turn out the way that I believe it was being steered towards. People in Kensington do want police. They do want safety. And they do want police officers that are doing their job and not being disrespectful or anything else. They have a job to do. We, the citizens of Kensington, know they have a job to do, and we respect them for doing that job, because if you live in my neighborhood, you know how hard that job is. And I've been fighting, I was Senator Street's chief of staff. I've been fighting for police accountability for many, many years. And I think this commission is good, but I believe that we have to take more time when we are sending a message to the public. We need to make sure that the language in those things, I get what they were trying to do, make people be able to voice their opinions without the police being there. And again, I believe they actually got the opposite of what they were thinking was going to happen. They thought people were going to come and complain about the police, but that wasn't the case. People came and they defended the police because the bottom line is we need them. We need good ones, but we need police. You ask the seniors in my neighborhood, and they'll tell you they'd rather have a police officer on the corner because they can't go to the corner store. They can't go out and shop. They're prisoners in their own homes. And we're trying to reverse the stigma here in the city of Philadelphia. We want police that want to do their job, that want to protect and serve, and be part of that community that they're protecting and serving. So I would just ask that in the future, the commission chooses their words wisely and think about the perception of what they're saying. And again, I'm a supporter of this. I believe that this is a needed thing. I believe that no one is above the law, and everybody should be held accountable for their actions. But we also have to support the good men and women doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Member, well said. It's no them against us, it's just us.
Yep.
And I agree. Member Lozada raised a good point. Maybe she'll share that with.
I'm just wondering, as you all have been doing the work, have you had, as a board, have you all had the opportunity to look at what your policies and your procedures are, not just in responding to any specific issue, but as a whole? Have you had an opportunity to sit down as a group of people to say, these are all of the potential incidents, these are all of the things we're supposed to be doing, and these are the things that we don't believe give us a clear path to how to respond and resolve this type of issue or issues in general? Has CPOC done that as a board?
May I?
Yeah, sure, please.
We are not allowed.
State your name again.
We are not allowed and we are not permitted to look at that information. We have been told that, and I can only speak for myself, I have requested to sit in the conference room at the office downtown to review any reports, even old reports. But we are not allowed, nor are we permitted, because we would get sued. So this is what's quoted to me and to the rest of the commissioners.
So if I understood your question, what else needs fixing? What other processes, not what systematic processes can you see that needs tightening up, and if share it with us?
Anthony,
okay.
as the ED of the organization, have you and your team internally had an opportunity to look at the process?
Is this for me, Councilwoman Lozado? Or are we speaking? Okay.
I'm sorry. I said, you being the executive director, have you all had an opportunity to sit down and look at what are your policies, what are the procedures, is there a clear path to responding to things that may come up? As an organization, right, sometimes, again, we put things in place and we don't think them through. Have you all had an opportunity to do that?
Self-evaluation.
Oh, sure. I mean, as an organization, we're always managing internal processes to try to make them more effective and efficient. If you're, as an example, response to complaints against police, we make sure that our process transmits and records and transmits those complaints within 5 business days, as an example. So we definitely have internal processes, and we're always trying to evaluate those processes to make them more efficient and better for the residents of Philadelphia.
So in a holistic, I think.
Right, I'm talking about to people, right? How do you respond to evaluating and making adjustments to processes as it relates to staffing, the commission, residents that you engage with, that you encounter along the way?
I mean, in general, the residents of Philadelphia are our guide. I mean, they're the ones that impart their concerns about policing, and they're the reason that we exist. So, I mean, we are always open and receptive to issues from all parts of the city.
So, if I could chime in, When we were at Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, I was appointed at a very rough time. We had backlogs. We had issues and conflicts within staff. We had all of them. And what we did was we went on a board retreat in Hershey, it wasn't in Miami, but we evaluated everything. We evaluated everything and said, you know, we take too long to evaluate a case, and why is this step here when we could expedite it this way? And as a result of that exercise, we actually improved over time our efficiency. Have you had that opportunity to do that?
That is something that internally, as a staff, that we do constantly. I mean, we're always trying to figure out smarter and better ways to function and to deliver service. If you're
with the board?
Well, the board can speak to their internal processes.
No. See, that's the point. Up in Pennsylvania, eventually we broke down that silo, and board members were sitting next to staff. Staff was sitting next to board members, and they said, well, you board member, you take too long to review, or you staffer, I get confused about what the steps are that it takes. And to really air out the system, the process together, has that ever happened?
I think this is a two-step question that it take a little bit in depth. March of last year, 2023, we began taking an in-depth look into the legislation, the policies that were available to us as a commission, right? And when I say a commission, I want to say in light of the new legislation, in light of the new amendments, the Board of Commissioners began to take a look via email. We then went to Commissioner Elder DeBoer's, Commissioner Elder DeBoer's Children's Mission as a commission, and went through the legislation and what we knew CPOC to be, piece by piece, including all of the wonderful television interviews. We then had a plan moving forward. The problem with this is we never brought the entire staff with our plan. We brought Executive Director Anthony Arachi, and we spoke to him directly and what we would like to see moving forward. Of course, the resignations happened, and everything fell apart. A lot of our plans fell apart after the resignations happened. But then we start moving forward. We hired attorney Catherine Twigg, who was basically able to give us legal advice and tell us what we are allowed to do and what we cannot do. Basically advise us. Since that, we've been having instances where we would get together with attorney Catherine Twigg, Anthony, and whatever director the issue involves. Small sessions about a certain particular issue or a certain particular subject that we wanted to address. Commissioner Elder is in the back. Commissioner, could you raise your hands, please, so they can see you? Commissioner Elder is in the back. Commissioner Elder has from day one said we need to do exactly what council is proposing. We need to sit down as a full commission, right? And when I say full commission, I'm not just saying the commissioners. I'm saying everybody involved in the Citizens Police Oversight Commission needs to sit down, discuss word for word, starting with the legislation, go through policies. We did a walk through police practice that I want to know more. A lot of our commissioners have done the police academy, right? So I think we all need to get together. and do exactly what you said, right? Because this will, as we talk, as everyone has said, this is a new chapter, right? This will help us in the definition of the new amendment. This will help us provide guidance on policing and policy moving forward. So I want to thank council for putting emphasis on it, and I want to also at the same time celebrate my fellow Commissioner Elder, who has from day one stated this is what we need to do before anything else, before any hires, anything. This is what we need to do. But at the same time, now that we have the hires, and now that we have specialists in their field, it will be that more potent to have what council is proposing today.
Yeah, I recommend that happen, right? And so that we're not here and that we're not building legislation around the issues that you are faced with on a consistent basis. And all of those policies should be done and put in writing so that people have a very clear definition of what the policy is, of what their actions are, of what their responsibilities are, because it is the only way that you are going to be a trusted source, not only through government, right, but also with the people, right? I want to trust that if the Oversight Commission took on an issue, that they were guided by a document that tells them how they're supposed to break it down, what they're supposed to do, that there was a fair process in that review and that their actions were just, right? Not just with cases, but with you all internally as a commission. I think that's extremely important. And so my recommendation is going to be that you do that you take the legislation and that you break it down and that every commissioner understand it. It's difficult when you're a volunteer commissioner, right, taking on such an important role and potentially not really understanding the importance of the role and how serious it is and what the expectation of you as an individual, number one, is, as well as a body. What is your responsibility as a body? And so that's just my recommendation. I don't want to be here a year from now having the same conversation and trying to build policy to be able to protect the commissioners, protect the commission, protect us as a body. And so, that's just my recommendation.
So that's humbly submitted to you.
Yes.
Any other questions for this panel? Member Goodyear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to agree with my colleague that I think people want safety and community policing. At the same time, they do want accountability and good treatment by the police. That being said, I am glad that that CPOC is independent. I don't expect them to toe any line. I don't expect them to gloss over real issues of mistrust between particularly Black and brown communities and police that are not the fault of civilians, nor were created by civilians. And I think it's important for CPOC to be perceived as a safe space. I agree with the recommendation for a retreat. I don't know about Miami now, but I agree with the recommendation for some sort of retreat that would bring the board and the staff together. I think every group goes through forming and norming and storming, right? Or forming and storming and norming, I think, is the order. And it's important for this group to go through that process as well. And so, anything that we can do from our vantage point to support that, I think would probably be a good thing for the group. And I wanted to thank the commissioners. I want to thank Mr. Arachi and the rest of the staff. You are trying to get your arms around an incredibly important thing in the city of Philadelphia, and that's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of time, and we thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I want to feel safe as a commissioner. I don't want to feel that if I go into an executive meeting that I'm going to be attacked. I'm on both sides. I was married to a chief inspector for the Philadelphia Police Department, and I respect the police department. My husband and I just lost a son 2 years ago, and my son Moses worried about me. He goes, Mom, I'm scared for you because this is a very serious position you're taking on. And I believe, I have faith. So I am concerned. Am I going to continue to be attacked in executive meetings? Am I able to still speak freely if I see something that is wrong? If I find that it's wrong, I'm going to speak on it. I'm not going to say, yeah, it's okay. No, it's not okay. As a survivor, we do not blame, shame, and guilt citizens for the abuse that they suffered. We're not going to do that, and I refuse to do that. So yes, I do have fear, but I believe that my co-commissioners and I can, and the new ones that come on board, they need to feel that they're a team. Every reporter that asks me, I would never speak ill manner of my co-commissioners. I would say we are a team. We work together. But lately, I have not been feeling like a team. But I'm not going away. You have me for 2 more years. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you. I'm honored and I'm proud. You know, as a Latina mother, grandmother, daughter, I'm proud to be a commissioner for CPOC. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I do.
Oh, go ahead.
Before we move forward, I wanted to make sure, well, I was just able to inform Elder, Commissioner Du Bois, Saturday about this hearing today before us. I just wanted to I'm asking you, could we see if she has anything to say?
We will, no, I would never deny it. Elder, please come up.
You know I was going to put you on spot.
Member Du Bois, Commissioner. Welcome. Take a seat, state your name for the record, and please begin your testimony. Get the mic to her, please.
Thank you. I believe it's still morning.
It is.
So good morning to council and to the chair, Councilman Jones. Thank you for this opportunity, and to my fellow commissioners who are here, especially my bookend, Commissioner Bennett. We take this role seriously, and we are committed to seeing a greater Philadelphia. I have been a part of this process before its inception. I was on the team that recognized the impotence of the PAC, and we fought to get a ballot question. We won by a margin of 74.9%, and we have been plowing forward ever since in a very arduous task of becoming the kind of commission that the citizens of Philadelphia need. I am disappointed in some of the things I've heard today, and I'm highly disappointed in some of the things that we have experienced. We have had opportunities that have been missed because of miscommunication or failure to communicate, and we have had challenges that as the Board of Commissioners we're up to face, but we have not necessarily always been giving the tools so that we can see a clear path forward. This is not my first board. This is not my first city appointment. This is not my first many of anythings. So I recognize the mistakes. I stood and I continue to stand in a professional place trying to support aid and guide my fellow commissioners, make recommendations to the staff so that we can be more effective. I will say, Councilman Jones, that sometimes people perceive me because I am blind, that I'm also stupid and crazy. Well, the fact is, that would be a big mistake to think that of me, because I'm wide awake, I'm woke in the vernacular, and I'm fully cognizant of everything. This is not a place to air dirty laundry, because we're moving toward correction.
There you go.
We will, in our next executive session, have a conversation about some form of retreat. We have articulated the missteps in the onboarding process, and because of those missteps, we have a lot of ground to make up and a lot of ground to cover. We are confident with the newly appointed executive director in the person of Ms. Tanya McClary. We are confident that under her leadership, we are about to engage in a number of changes. It was stated earlier that this is not the first change in our legislation, so we will be back in this room in the not too distant future. There are a number of gray areas, and we've ran into some of those gray areas when we first tried to establish a permanent executive director. So now that those have been highlighted, as was mentioned by Councilor Lozada, now that it has been emphasized that we need to again go through both the legislation and the bylaws with a fine-tooth comb, now that we're out of the weeds of some of our transitional processes, we're going to do just that. And we will emerge as a commission who knows, we know our assignment to make this a safer, more fair, more just community, not just for our men and women in blue, who we don't despise. We support them. We don't speak against them. We speak for justice. But not only for them, but for the citizens of Philadelphia whose trust has been eroded. Thank you so much, Councilman Jones, for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Now, you know they don't clap for everybody, but they just clap for you, because well said, well said. And we have faith. We absolutely have confidence in you, your commission, the staff, the process. The blessing is in the struggle. If you guys were rubber stamping everything and it was kumbaya, I would raise the question like, this is a body up here. We don't always get it on. I mean, get along. We figure it out. We figure it out. And so we have faith in you. Are there any other questions for the panel? Thank you all for your testimony and input. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Glass.
Mr. Chairman, our next panel will be Chief Public Safety Director Adam Geer and Adam Garber, Executive Director of Ceasefire PA. That is for Bill number 240472.
So we're on the last bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Let me just open up with, if you look at Las Vegas and what happened when, I think it was 100+ people were killed, the use of a trigger enhancement accelerated the rate of fire, causing those casualties. If you look at what happened up in the school district's shooting, a trigger enhancement was used to accelerate the fire rate. If you look at police officers that go out every day, they have limits on what they can use by way of tools. And in a case of a bump stock, in the case of an enhanced trigger, they're outgunned. And it's not fair. When I think about, the Pennsylvania Gaming Commission requires only 3 bullets in a gun to hunt a deer or a turkey. But yet, in the city of Philadelphia, we can put trigger enhancements that's caused the rate of fire to exponentially increase to the point that you're like using a musket against people with Tommy guns. So with that, this legislation is designed to prohibit that in the city and county of Philadelphia. And with that, who do we have first to testify, Mr. Glass?
Chief Public Safety Director Adam Gear.
Mr. Gear, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Jones. Good morning, council members. It's always nice to be here in front of you. My name is Adam Gear. I'm the Chief Public Safety Director. I'm joined here by my deputy, Joshua Harris, who, if we have to get into the weeds, will assist me in that endeavor. And it is my pleasure and really my duty, right, to offer testimony in support of this bill, number 240472. My office, the Office of Public Safety, created this bill to meet a rising threat in devices that accelerate a firearm's rate of fire. Such devices include auto sears, also known as switches, and bump stocks. And the difference here between the two is the switch is inserted normally, or called a Glock switch, into the back of the gun. It changes the mechanics of the gun in violation of federal law and turns it essentially into a machine gun, right? And if you've seen any footage of these, and it's simple to go to YouTube and see how they operate, it is just like a machine gun, whereas a semi-automatic gun is just as fast as you can pull the trigger, right? And so that's the critical difference. The bump stock, so the Glock switch changes that gun's mechanics in violation of federal law. The bump stock is different. It relies on the recoil of the gun, normally a rifle, and you put it on the back of the rifle where you put it in your arm, and it uses the rifle's recoil to accelerate the rate at which you can fire. And again, it approaches that of a machine gun. Predictably, when these devices are added to guns, the result is carnage and more carnage, and we're seeing that. A switch was involved in the shooting of those 18s at the bus stop in Northeast Philadelphia back in March. Police investigators estimated that one suspect fired 23 shots in about 2 seconds using a switch. Okay, 23 shots in about 2 seconds. That is impossible to do if it was just a regular semi-automatic. But with that switch, 23 shots in about 2 seconds. The sort of firepower has become common in Philadelphia's streets. They're cheap and easy to obtain from suppliers, Chinese suppliers, and are often falsely advertised and labeled. Switches are also able to be made with 3D printers, which is why this legislation also would seek to make that in violation of it. Accordingly, we have seen an alarming rise in multiple victim shootings from dozens to hundreds a year. And really, one of the reasons why we're seeing that, as was the case in that horrific shooting in March, is that if any of you fired an automatic weapon before, or a machine gun type weapon, it is incredibly difficult to control. That recoil that you're getting from rapid fire causes you to lose accuracy, and even professional marksmen have difficulty harnessing the power, right, of a machine gun, and that's even doubly so for a handgun, which is what we see in our switches. So because a handgun is a short barrel gun, it's harder, it's less accurate, period, than a rifle. And then when you add that machine gun of 23 shots in 2 seconds, it causes projectiles to go downrange more or less indiscriminately. And in a city, that is a huge, huge, huge risk to our citizenry. So I want to spell that out. This bill attacks the problem broadly. It bans the production, the purchase, sale, or transfer of any of these devices. And as such, this bill comprehensively addresses this rising and very real deadly threat from this basic weapons technology. With that, I'd pass it on to my fellow colleague, Adam, and welcome any questions afterwards.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr.
State your name for the record, please.
Huh?
State your name.
My name's Adam Garber. I'm the Executive Director of Ceasefire PA. And thank you, Chairman Jones and members of the Committee on Public Safety. Pennsylvania, we are Pennsylvania's leading gun violence prevention organization, and I will say I'm also a resident of the city of Philadelphia for 17 years, living in South Philadelphia. Thank you for inviting me to testify on this critical issue. And thank you, Councilman Jones, Chairman Jones, for sponsoring this ordinance, because as you heard, these are a small part with a fatal consequence for Philadelphians. The auto sears and bump stocks used are an inherent danger because they allow a firearm to fire like a machine gun, spewing up to 1,200 bullets in a minute, and when combined with extended magazines can cause severe damage. Since the bump stock was first really used and came onto the national scene in 2017 when it was used to kill 59 people in Las Vegas, these types of pieces, and especially switches and auto sears, have infiltrated Philadelphia. As you've already heard, they were used in the murder of the injury of three teenagers, when 3 teenagers opened fire at a SEPTA bus stop in Northeast Philadelphia, injuring 8 students. And at least one of the perpetrators used this switch to convert his handgun into a rapid-fire device. Police also suspect that they may have been used in the murder of Officer Menendez as well earlier in 2023. As noted, they also increased the rate of bystanders being injured, which we've seen notably over the last few years because it makes it harder to aim. This is also a rising national issue. The Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms recorded a 570% increase in the number of such devices recovered by police departments between 2017 and 2021, the most recent period with available data on their prevalence. And it's not surprising considering how easy they are either to make or purchase online. You can buy them for as little as $20, often ordering as counterfeit parts from China, and they can be 3D printed in your own home. One of the things I want to note here is that although these devices are already illegal to possess under federal law, the district attorneys cannot prosecute violations of federal law. And it's why the PA District Attorneys Association recently supported a similar statewide bill to ban bump stocks and Glock switches, and why Republican-led states like Mississippi recently banned these deadly devices. Allowing people to convert a handgun into a machine gun with a simple, cheap part is a recipe for death and terror. One last note. For decades, the General Assembly has preempted local gun safety laws, forcing us to live with this violence, unfortunately, and unconscionably, honestly. But the PA Commonwealth Court recognized a simple reality. You aren't regulating firearms. This ordinance will regulate parts, which is why the court upheld Council President Johnson's previous ban on ghost guns. And this falls in that legal theory that we have the right to keep people safe by addressing parts that make firearms more deadly. Thank you for your time and continuing the work to make the city safer.
Thank you for the work you do and your testimony.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
We'll take questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, any
All right. We're seeing increasing use of these switches and bump stocks. And what kind of disadvantage does it give law enforcement in the city of Philadelphia? Because we're not allowed to make them standard issue on their weapons, so literally we're outgunned.
It's a tremendous issue for our law enforcement, and I believe it's why law enforcement has supported these measures, because they don't want their folks out there looking down the barrel of one of these Glock switches, right? Which again is throwing out this ammunition at a rate that they just cannot keep up with. So it's an extreme disadvantage. It puts our law enforcement in peril. And we're hoping to continue to march towards state solutions for this and to utilize our federal partners as well in the prosecution of these crimes and come down hard when we find these, because it's putting everyone at danger, and that goes also for our law enforcement.
So I want to thank you and the administration for proposing this legislation. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? How do you keep Philadelphia safe? One piece of good enforceable legislation at a time. And I think this is consistent with the cleaner, greener, safer Philadelphia. So I thank you for that. Any other questions? Good. Member Goodyear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're on a roll today with legislation, important legislation. This is so necessary. When I think about some of the shootings we've seen recently, the horrible SEPTA bus shooting, the shooting on 4th of July on 60th Street in my district, where they were able to get off 104 shots in a few minutes, injuring 4 people, killing Senator Street's nephew, as well as another person in my district. I don't remember the details to know if they had a bump stock in that particular shooting, but I do believe that we have to do whatever we can to get dangerous weapons and dangerous accessories for weapons off of the street. And if the state is not going to help us, despite the best efforts of ADAM and Ceasefire PA and others, then we have to help ourselves. And so I commend our Council President Johnson for his ghost gun legislation, but also Councilmember Jones for this piece of legislation designed to keep dangerous weapons and dangerous accessories for weapons out of the hands of citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Lozada?
I also want to say thank you, Council Member. You are absolutely on a roll as it relates to public safety and changing how things happen around public safety in our city. So thank you so much for being so intentional in the legislation, in the pieces of legislation that you've set forth, especially those that were presented today. You know, representing a district where 2 of the districts where the highest crime comes out of the 24th and the 25th Police District, it is legislation like this that really will have a direct impact on the ground in the community. But my question is, how are we, you know, we do a lot of these gun buybacks, right? I want to know, how effective are they, right? Especially in getting this type of firearm off the streets, right? I have talked to many grandmoms, many moms who have said, there was a rifle, I got a rifle, you know, I got they don't know, right? They got a small gun. But how effective are we, other than making arrests in serious cases, right? How effective are we in getting these guns off the streets? What do people do when they see these types of weapons in their homes? How can we work with young people at the school district to try to educate them on how serious this is? I mean, you just said 23 rounds come out in 2 minutes. 2 seconds. In 2 seconds. You said 1,200 in something, like, I can't even imagine how we begin to educate our young people on how dangerous even having one of these in your home is, right? So how do we do that?
Maybe I'll take the first part and hand it over for additional comments. Just to note, I mean, on gun buybacks in general, I think they are admirable attempts to address a crisis that the city has limited tools in the toolbox to address. The truth is that the evidence tends to be limited, that they actually reduce gun violence, mostly because the people who are returning and selling out the guns are often not the people using them, and just frankly the sheer number of guns. So I think 2 years ago it was about 800 or 900 guns that were bought back through those events in Philadelphia. The same year, it's just statewide because we don't have Philadelphia numbers, 1.4 million guns were sold. So 800-900 guns in one city, probably a few 100,000 here, you are taking, you know, water out of a bucket with a thimble. That being said, when we're talking about getting to children and teenagers and understanding the consequences, I think the investments that the city has done, that the state has done in programs to prevent violence and to include lethal means counseling to help understand the consequences of violence, which seems so obvious to us, but is not a considered process thought always for youth, right? Their brains are still developing, we know, just biologically. Those programs have been shown to be extremely effective in reducing violence and have worked through a whole number of means, whether they're school-based programs, working people who in diversion-based programs or in the city's GVI model. All those programs help youth understand the consequences and find other pathways to deal with the conflict that they're experiencing that doesn't resort to a gun, and ultimately leads to some of them probably returning their guns and saying, this is not a pathway I need to use. And so, you know, I think when we look at the drop in homicide and shooting rates in the city, which has been quite significant in the last year and a half, it is heavily attributable to those CVI programs that have been funded through the city council's budget, the city's budget, through the state's budget and other programs, and work with a lot of targeted youth who are at high risk for being involved in violence, especially in that kind of 15 to 22-year-old range.
Thank you for that. And the only thing I'll add, Councilmember, and you're right, there is an education here that we frankly need to do more of, right, for our youth, an education about the dangerous and seriousness of just having a gun around, right, just a gun being in the home. We had made an introduction to an organization in Chicago, and I'll get you the information if you'd like after, just blanking unfortunately on the name. But what their model is, and we made an introduction to a Philadelphia gun violence group within the last month or two. They've come from Chicago, they've met with this group. What they do is they use social media influencers within the community to do a campaign, a targeted campaign about the dangers of guns, for specifically targeted at youth, school-aged youth. So they will literally get influencers, people in the community, they'll identify who kids might be listening to, and then they will have a very good, visceral, information, fact-filled social media campaign, right? Something that kids will be scrolling and see that deals with how dangerous it is just to have a gun around. And we know that suicide is a problem with guns, right?
Fratricide.
Correct. There's all that, and then there's the shootings, the mistaken shootings in the home that we see. We just had one where a child was playing with a gun and shot his friend. So these are things that we need to do more of, and will continue to do more of.
It's Project Unloaded.
Thank you. Project Unloaded.
Okay. Have we looked at, as a city, have we looked at where are these being generated? Like where are the majority of these types of weapons found? You know, I think we were having a conversation recently about, you know, bringing down, if we want to have an impact on what is happening in communities like Kensington, where there is multi-billion-dollar open-air narcotics sales, and we know where those target areas are. Are we doing the same? Are we capturing data the same way in where these guns are being produced and sold out of? Are we looking at that type
with our federal partners?
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember, I can speak to that.
State your name.
Yes, Joshua Harris, Deputy Director, Office of Public Safety. It's a great question. We've been thinking about the gun buyback question as well as the flow of guns and where the guns are found, and also why people carry guns. I'm glad to say that we have a partnership with UPenn's Crime and Justice Policy Lab, which is a leader on rigorous research on community violence and gun violence in particular, to study how and why people carry guns, to understand how changes in recent years have influenced gun carrying motivation and gun carrying patterns and activities. And it's part of our broader effort to better understand what's happening on the street. We have a lot of really good anecdotal evidence. We have a lot of good intel. We have some data analysis, but we're trying to always penetrate deeper on that question so that we understand why it is that people are carrying guns, so that we can influence them, hopefully to not carry guns, to not make that choice. But the fact is that there's quite a bit of fear out on the streets. We know that. There's also people who are carrying guns for business reasons. You mentioned drug trafficking. We know that there are people who sell drugs that carry guns for business reasons as well. But we are trying to solidify and sharpen that knowledge base so that we can use it to deploy better, more targeted, more effective means of reducing gun violence. For example, with gun buybacks, one of the things we've talked about is coming up with a model that's designed, rather than to set up a table somewhere and put up flyers and invite people, that we do more of a targeted outreach. And so we're connecting with people who we know are carrying guns or who have access to a gun, and encouraging them to take advantage of financial incentives to turn in guns that may be involved in a shooting, for example. Another thing that we've done in partnership with the Department of Public Health is a safe storage campaign, but in partnership with a community-based organization that focuses on youth, Yeah Philly. And so we're using our experience with this Safe Storage campaign to understand if we have trusted community partners that have authentic relationships with people in the community who may be exposed to guns or gun violence. Can we do a better job of targeted outreach in order to try to make people and make communities safer?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about, at least in the 7th Council District, with the community-based organizations that are within the boundaries of the 24th, 25th Police District, is how do we get gun locks into those community-based organizations that are oftentimes the first point of contact with community residents, right? And they find it challenging. They find it challenging to partner with someone who could issue gun locks, right? So I think we need to do a better job at that. And then, what is the most effective way to be able to present someone with, is there a gun in your home? And if so, we have access to a safety option, right? How do we do that without offending someone or without making someone feel uncomfortable about the question? As we work towards educating our young people, we need to look at how do we make access to gun safety options more available to those who provide services on the ground and who have connections with community residents more directly and who are more trusted, as well as when we're doing these gun buybacks, how do we encourage them to bring these types of weapons in, right? Where it is, where they feel there's value to, it's just not a safety thing, where there's value. Like you need to bring these weapons in, they need to be off the street. Because sometimes offering them a $100 gift card is not enough, right? We've even tried to say, we're gonna give you $500 in groceries. And sometimes that's not enough. And so what is that correct amount, or what is that correct incentive? I think that we need to work together with those trusted partners on the ground to be able to figure out what's the best option, as well as what's the best way or what's the best method to be able to offer them a safety option.
Good point. Chair recognizes Member Goodyear.
Just wanted to agree with this thread of conversation that Councilmember Lozada brought up, that I love that we're probably moving forward this policy banning the bump stocks, but I also think we have to be more creative too about creating an environment for people to voluntarily give up guns. I agree with Adam that the most important work that we can do over time is investing in and engaging young people who are caught up in a cycle of violence. This council has been has led the effort to get historic amounts of funding into violence prevention and violence interruption programs. But we also should be thinking much more creatively about, lessening the supply of guns in spite of what Harrisburg is or is not doing. I don't believe that anybody's going to, walk into a community center and give up a high-powered weapon for $125, particularly if they have concerns about their own safety that, lend to them carrying a weapon. I love what you said, Joshu, about doing this in a more targeted way and potentially, upping what we're offering to people. So I think we should really, really, really lean into this. I personally would want to help you all move forward any efforts that you're considering in this area. Thank you.
And any data that you crunch that can give us some guidance on both the administration and council, please forward that, and I'll distribute it to the members. Member Harity.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I grew up on the streets of Philadelphia. I wasn't always the person I am today. So I know that when you're offering somebody $100, $150 for a gun buyback, when they could easily sell it on the street for $500, $600, you know, most likely they're going to sell that gun on the street because cash is king. And, you know, we need to look at that and see where and what number is the right number. Is it 500? Is it 700? Is it $1,000? Because for me, getting those guns off the street is more important than anything else that we're dealing with right now in the city of Philadelphia. You know, in 2022, I believe it was, we had 506 homicides in the city of Philadelphia. 198 of those homicides were in Councilwoman Lozada's district between the 24th to 25th, and I believe it was the 22nd police district. That's almost half in one area alone. So again, echoing my colleagues, I think we need to figure out what the right number is to get these guns off the street, and then make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Public safety, gun violence has to be one of our #1 priorities. And we need to get serious about it. And when you know, on the street, you want to be serious, you throw money at it. And that's something that we need to do. We need to put some money aside to say, listen, we're willing to come out here and buy every gun that we can off this street and out of the hands of somebody who may use it. We also have to figure out why the hell a teenage child feels the need to carry a gun. There's some kind of disconnect there, which, you know, I believe goes back to COVID and our children not being able to communicate with each other for so long that they lost that ability to actually communicate with each other and conflict resolution. We need to figure that out in the schools. We need to be providing more mental health in our school system for these kids, because I can tell you that there's a lot of kids suffering out there, and they really don't know why they feel as scared as they feel. But, you know, when you live in a neighborhood like me and Ketzi come from, and parts of Councilwoman Gaudier and Councilman Curtis Jones's district, it's a reality. These kids are scared. They're scared for their own lives, and that's why they're carrying firearms. We need to make them feel safer. We need to give them the mental health that they need. And I'll give a little plug to the sheriff's office. They have been outstanding when it comes to getting gun locks into our communities. Every event you go to with the sheriff, she has stacks and stacks of gun locks sitting there that she takes out of her budget to buy in order to try to keep people safe. And that's another thing, you know, we shouldn't have departments taking stuff out of their budget when they need it for other stuff, when we can just allocate other funding for that. So I think we need to start looking outside the box and figuring out what the right number is to get more of these guns in. And, you know, the God's honest truth is nobody is going to turn a gun in for $100 if they can get 500 on the streets. Sad fact.
Thank you, member. Well, I just want to shout you out because it was you that drew a line in the sand with the last administration that said that we have to elevate gun violence and public safety to a level where we were taking it seriously. And I can, over lapsed time, see the difference because we have a chief safety officer today because of it. So we're taking it seriously, and I want to thank the administration for taking it seriously. And so we're getting there a little bit at a time, but we are getting there, and we're moving in the right direction, just not fast enough for the victims of this violence, but we aren't giving up, neither should they. With that, is that any other questions from the panel? Thank you for your testimony. And you, I understand, have volunteered find resources for CPOP for their retreat. Thank you so much. Member here. Right?
Miami.
Yeah, it'll have to be. It could be Main Street. That begins with an M. Mr. Glass.
Mr. Chairman, there are no more panels to testify on the bills today.
Thank you so very much for your testimony. We appreciate your input. This will conclude the public meeting.
Mr. Chairman, we still have public comment.
We have one more? Okay.
Public comment.
Public comment.
Public comment. Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Glass, for keeping me on point.
Serving out with the rest of his
Yeah, I know. Caroline, take notes.
Mr. Chairman, our first three individuals for public comment will be Daria Spencer, Kate Perez, and Marta Gutenberg.
Welcome. Please take a seat, and we will call you in the order that Mr. Glass announced you.
Daria Spencer.
Is it still morning? Yes.
No, is Daria Spencer here? Next up will be Kate Perez.
I woke up today to the news that Israel...
Gotta say your name.
Oh, Kate Perez. I woke up today to the news that Israel bombed Rafah over 60 times in the 48 hours after the International Court of Justice ordered them to halt the assault on Rafah, which Israel themselves had declared a safe zone. There's videos coming from the massacres showing parents holding up burnt remains of their children. Fathers are using cell phone flashlights to try to find their children's heads. Pictures of civilian elders with their brain matter on the ground in clear violations of international law. Netanyahu stated that occupying Rafah and increasing military pressure on Hamas is the proper response to the court's decision that he then called anti-Semitic. There is a dangerous trend of conflating Zionism with the religion of Judaism, with many Jewish rights groups and Holocaust survivors coming out against this dangerous conflation, calling it a measure to curb free speech and distract from Israel's genocide on Palestine. Not all Jewish people are Zionists, and many Zionists are not Jewish. Zionism has meant profound trauma for generations, systematically separating Palestinians from their home, land, and each other. In practice, Zionism has resulted in the massacre of Palestinian civilians, ancient villages, historic mosques. Families who live just a mile away from each other are now separated by violent checkpoints, and thousands of Palestinian hostages are being held in administrative detention without charge. I do not have faith in our Philadelphia Police Department to correctly handle hate crimes, as our own police force is cross-trained by the Israeli occupation forces. Israel is a well-documented apartheid state, and having our own police force train with them seems like a conflict of interest, especially as Israel has already been taken to the International Court by multiple countries on the charge of genocide, ethnic cleansing, collective punishment, forced starvation, and more. I'm confused as to how the police representative can come today to a stated meeting about hate crimes without any hate crime statistics. Coming with the statistics is the actual bare minimum. As a citizen, failure to bring statistics for this public meeting feels like either an attempt to hide the numbers or a lack of competency. It's racist to have the words "Free Palestine" even considered as a hate crime. There's nothing about calling for a free Palestine that can be seen as a hate crime. The people of Palestine have a right to freedom, and the country will continue to exist, regardless of how many bombs and robot dogs Philadelphia sells to their occupier. On May 1st, our House passed a bill to expand the definition of anti-Semitism to include criticisms for Israel, where criticisms like even saying the existence of the State of Israel is a racist endeavor would be called anti-Semitic under its terms. Netanyahu called the ICJ anti-Semitic for telling them to stop bombing refugee camps. It feels like we're shaping our laws to silence the Palestinian struggle and have our police force uphold the destruction of our freedoms of speech. Again, our police force directly trains and partners with the known apartheid state. I think this skews their ability to understand what a hate crime is. As we continue to think about hate crimes, we should reconsider our police force partnering with the military that's famous for its racist war crimes. Rafah is being bombed right now. We need to do all we can to free Palestine.
Thank you for your testimony. State your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Marta Guttenberg. I am a resident of the city, and my comment follows along the same lines as the previous member of the public who spoke. I saw the three spokespersons talking about the improvement of our local anti-hate laws. As I thought about what I could say to you today, I was thinking that a very simple definition of justice is fairness. And the plan that could come out of the changes in the law is a worsening of the unfairness of their application. The plan to enhance punishment for people's in free speech ability to say what is on their mind in public and perhaps louder than the neighbors want to hear. I'm hoping that you will understand the power differential between people urging justice and fairness for the oppressed Palestinians in Palestine, and the intense silencing and criticism and doxing that such people receive, even from the institutions that hire and employ them. It's literally not safe to say certain phrases that are not hate speech. They're not bad names. They're not any of the words that we can't say, but are in some cases simple statements of geographic fact, like river, sea, city. I'm grateful for Councilmember Gautier naming the elephant in the room. A genocide, the worst perhaps the worst in history because so industrialized, is happening against an innocent population and with the complicity of the powers that be and the silencing of people who tried to do what Rosalba talked about. Just saying that there's a problem makes you the problem. I know that you can only write the laws, you can't figure out how they'll be enforced, but I want you to see the intense power irregularity that is weighing down on people trying to speak up for an oppressed people who are being shot, as we saw, all over the... Anyway, thank you for letting me share. The crisis of our time is a genocide. It's the mother of all crimes, and we can't be silent and pretend to deal with other things while a genocide is occurring in our name, with our money, and with our political cover. Do what you can in your position to put a stop to this world historic disaster. Other city councils have stepped up. I plead with you to step up. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And I fight for freedom of speech every opportunity I get. We don't always agree, but we agree that you should be heard, and you know that. I did take into account what this legislation might be perceived as doing, and we will kind of take a look at that as well. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, there are no other speakers for public comment.
Oh, Member Goodyear.
I just wanted to chime in and say thank you for your comment today. In particular, I wanted to thank Kate Perez. You have this quiet sort of determination about you that I really respect. And I thank you for continuing to come and speak on this topic, even as the council has struggled with how to interface and engage on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you for your testimony. Is that it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are no other speakers for public comment.
Okay, so this concludes our public hearing on bills numbers, repeat the bill, 240, 280, 240, 330, and 240472. Now we will recess for a second and then go into our public meeting. Thank you. Mr. Glass, can you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Councilmember Harity.
Here.
Councilmember Gaudier.
Here.
Vice Chair Lozada.
Here.
And Chairman Jones.
Present. And with that, we have a quorum. We are convening. And I call on a motion from Member Lozada on bill number 240280.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 240280 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and therefore move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next council session. Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Bill number 240280 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at our next session of council. Chair again recognizes Member Lozada.
Thank you, Council President. I offer an amendment to bill
President, correction. I'm not the president, I'm chairman. Don't get in trouble. You said Council President.
Oh, Council President, Council.
No.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yada. I corrected him.
Corrected for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to bill number 240330. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of this committee. I move that the amendment be approved.
Second. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 240330 be amended, and a copy of that amendment is circulated to all members of council. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Bill number 240330 as amended has been approved. Again, I recognize Member Lozada for amended bill number 240330.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bill number 240330 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that amended bill number 240330 be moved from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit next reading at our next session of council. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Bill is approved. Again, I recognize Member Lozado on a motion for Bill number 240330.
472. Council.
Oh, 472. The correction, 240472.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Bill number 240472 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Bill number 240472 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at our next session of council. Thank you.
This concludes the business.
This concludes the business of the Public Safety Committee. Do we have any other closing comments?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.